Hi and welcome to part 2 of my AQA GCSE Media Studies revision guide. The topic this year is TV serial dramas, and in this video we're going to be looking at all things audience. So, for the exam, you basically need to know who audiences of TV dramas are, how to refer to them, and perhaps a little bit of media theory in terms of why they actually engage with the media like they do. Let's start off with how to define an audience. What assumptions can you make about the average person who watches these texts?
Saul and I are in love.
Excuse me? You're gay?
We want to get married.
Oh, married?
Because we can do that now.
I know.
Stand down, vixens, and listen up.
You'll probably have noticed something about their age and gender, which are two examples of demographics. But there are countless other ways of segmenting an audience beyond just their age and the gender. You can look at their political views, their sexuality, their nationality, where they're from, their income. All of these things can paint a pretty accurate picture as to the average person who watches a show. So let's look at a couple of examples of TV serial dramas and try and work out the demographics, who watches them. Now, dramas are a hugely popular genre, appealing to a very, very wide audience. So what you'll find is you'll have shows like this.
Aww. Cute costumes, guys. Is your grandma missing her curtains? And who did
which
you make
is
up?
a school-based drama on CBBC, which is probably aimed at, 8 to 14-year-olds. Now, we'd call this a niche audience because it's going to appeal to quite a narrow audience. I don't think it would appeal to people younger or older than that kind of group. Then we have shows which are aimed at a more teenage audience, like these.
I kind of think I could fall in love with him.
I thought she could be interesting to kill, so I pretended to fall in love with her.
What else do I need to know? You're just like the rest of them, but I'm not.
And then, of course, the vast majority of TV dramas are going to appeal to an adult audience, primarily because of their themes and the subject matter, like these.
My impressive list of accomplishments. I was an artist in his prime.
I'm left alive in 6 months' time. It is not always the one who strikes the blow that is the actual murderer.
Now, in terms of gender, there's very little point in tailoring a show too much towards one gender, because it basically means you're going to be splitting your potential audience. Now, there are exceptions to this rule, like these.
Do a dare. He won't. He's boring.
So what? If I eat this bonsai tree, I automatically become fun and interesting, do I? Yes.
But broadly speaking, producers are going to try and make their texts appeal to as wide an audience as possible. As such, you will often find strong female and male characters who the various members of the audience can relate to. Likewise, the target audience will often determine the types of storylines that we'll see, the themes, and the representations you'll find. Now, arguably, the real holy grail of TV serial dramas is finding a show which appeals to the family audience. One which will appeal and is suitable for younger members of the family, as well as engage and entertain the adults. Now, as opposed to a niche audience, this is what we would call a mass audience. And because it's going to draw in so many more viewers, producers are going to be able to demand higher advertising rates. I think this is why Stranger Things saw such success. Arguably, the primary audience for this show was teenagers and young adults, both male and female. The main protagonists are young, the enemies are basically monsters, but because of its nostalgic themes, it had a huge secondary adult audience. As a result, the show pulled millions of viewers and became the success that we know today. We can also talk about audience in terms of the socioeconomic scale, and this refers to the education and income of the audience. Here's the scale, and as you can see, A-B audience members are more managerial. They will often have a higher income because of their positions, and this will be reflected in the kind of media that they engage with. If we look at C1 and C2 audiences, this is more middle class, whereas D or E audiences are more likely to be in unskilled professions, perhaps unemployed or elderly. So that's who the audience is and how to define them. But how does the audience engage with the media? Why do they watch TV dramas? Audiences watch TV dramas for several reasons, and I think the best way to look at this is through the uses and gratification model, which I'm not going to outline fully here. I'd recommend you just watch my separate video on uses and gratification up here. Now, in terms of these 4 uses, we can quickly rule out surveillance or information as a reason for watching TV dramas, because realistically, that's not the first place you're going to go if you want to find out real-world information. But the other 3 gratifications offer a much more interesting insight into why people watch dramas. Obviously, audiences are going to be gratified with entertainment because they are gripping, they're fun to watch, they're engaging, for all of the reasons we spoke about in part 1 of this series. Dramas may also offer social interaction in two forms. Firstly, as a talking point between you and your real friends. Did you see that part on The Walking Dead last night? Have you checked out that new show? But it also offers social interaction by providing us with believable characters who we grow to love and feel like we really know. And finally, they might offer audiences a sense of personal identity. Characters who share our ideology or behave in a way that we aspire to. In this sense, characters almost behave like role models to some audiences. The other side to this gratification is you might get a sense of personal identity because you wear a show like a badge of honor, something that identifies you. So you might be a big fan of the Marvel shows on Netflix, like Daredevil and The Punisher, which identifies you as a cool geek. Finally, I'd like to talk about how audiences engage with TV dramas. Now, binge watching is a phenomenon which has become completely normal thanks to DVD box sets and then more recently streaming services like Netflix and Amazon Prime. Now, the ability to watch an entire series in one sitting if you want to has completely undone years and years of scheduling strategies that we would see on television. So the idea of having to make an audience wait an entire week for the next episode doesn't really apply anymore. So when season 2 of Stranger Things was released, it was released in its entirety. And when you think about it, this makes sense. Why would you withhold the product from the audience? That's not what they want. Fine, from a business point of view, it would mean that you guarantee more monthly subscriptions by releasing episodes weekly, but from an audience's point of view, it's just going to be frustrating. So now, as a result of all of these shows being released in their entirety, season by season, what we've seen is shows having to try harder to hook the audience from the start. Because if they're not enjoying your show, they can just find another hit series somewhere else. So that's all I wanted to talk about in this part of the series. And in terms of how this applies to the exam, you need to start thinking about how the show that you're going to be pitching is going to be tailored to a specific audience. So don't be shy in justifying your decisions. If you designed a character that you think a particular part of your audience will relate to, throw in some uses and gratification, and say how they might get a sense of personal identity. Or if you have a go at writing a script for the first 5 minutes of your show, think about how the language you use must reflect the age and socioeconomic background of the audience watching your show. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time where we talk about institutions of TV dramas.